Good morning and welcome to this morning's webinar, Foundations of County Government. My name is Jeanette Stanziano and I am the Director of Education and Training for the New York State Association of Counties. On behalf of our President, the Honorable Jack Marin, and NYSAC's Executive Director, Stephen J. Aquario, I'd like to thank you for joining us this morning. Just a couple of housekeeping tips before we begin. This webinar will be recorded and will be posted after 1 o'clock today with a recording of the program as well as a PDF of the slide deck for your use should you like to rewatch the webinar. You can find this webinar at www.nysac.org/webinars. Or if you just go to our website and click on the Education tab, another sub list will drop down and you'll see webinars right there. And you can find it by date. Also, during the program, if you have questions for the presenter at any time, please make sure that you put your question in writing and submit it through the dashboard under the Questions tab. That way we can receive it silently at any time during the program and we can stop and answer your question, or if we get too many, we'll certainly answer it at the end of the program if you don't think of a question until the very end during a brief Q&A. This morning we are very happy to have a sponsor of this program, and that would be a very old friend of ours, Romer, Wallens, Gold, and Minot. They are a longtime sponsor of NYSAC's and are a current associate partner. Romer, Wallens, Gold, and Minot, LLP, is a multidimensional law firm that focuses its representation of municipalities in public sector employment matters, public finance, and defense litigation. Thank you very much for sponsoring this program today. And should you have any questions for Romer, Wallens, Gold, and Minot, please contact John Minot, Managing Partner, at 518-464-8911 or at email address jmineux@rwgmlaw.com. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Patrick Cummings, who is our counsel for the New York State Association of Counties. Patrick will be presenting today. And without further ado, Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jeanette. Really appreciate it. And thank you all for taking time this morning to join us. As Jeanette said, I'm Pat Cummings. I'm proud to be counsel of NYSAC. And what we're going to take about 45 minutes to an hour today talking about is what we call foundations. It's of county government, and really what we're going to go over is it's for newly electeds, and it's a refresher course, kind of a 101 on what makes a New York county a county. Why do we have different structures organizationally throughout the state? What gives us our powers? What are our powers? And it's just, as any elected official or any county official, it's good to know how you're structured, why you're structured that way, and what are your powers and what are your restrictions. And so hopefully we'll be able to answer some of that with the history of counties, as well as what you have in front of you today. My understanding in talking to Jeanette about the makeup of who's on here, there are a few newly electeds. There's not as many this year. It's kind of almost usually every other year we get it's just the election cycle. But there are a few of you on there, and I want to take time and thank you for running. It's really important that you do, and we're going to talk about what a county government is structure wise, but really what a county is it's made up of people, and it's made up of officials that take their time and they serve the people, and it's at times can be a thankless job. It is a difficult job. in this day and age, especially. It's getting harder and harder to get people to step up and say, you know, I will take that scrutiny on. I know how difficult this position is, and you're doing it. So you know, we deal with county officials every day. It always amazes me how great and everyone is that works in county government and smart, and how they do step up to that challenge. So thank you for running. Thank you for taking this position. And for those of you that are taking this as a refresher, thank you for staying with county government. It's really you that make county government go. And so we wanted to thank you. Also, for the newly electeds, I just want to take a second and talk to you about what NISAC is. You obviously know a bit about us because you signed up for this webinar, but we just know we're not for profit. That's dedicated entirely to help you and to help county government be more effective, more efficient. And we do that numerous ways. We do that through training and education, like we're going to do today. We do that really as a single source to bring counties together. So whether it be just meetings that we're having, to our conferences, upcoming conferences, it's bringing county officials together so that you can talk to your neighbor county, saying, wait a minute, how are you doing X, Y, Z? And so you don't have to feel like you're on an island. You can get answers from each other. We can help bring you together to do that. Also, we advocate for you. And what does that mean? In part, we'll talk about this too. The state sets up laws that you have to abide by, and structures that you have to play by, and expenses that you need to meet. We try to help change those laws. So we advocate on your behalf to help you get a more efficient government. We lobby, if you will. And that starts with you telling us on the ground what's working, what's not working, what's too difficult. And so please use us as a resource on that. You know, if you're saying it just doesn't make sense that we have to perform this service in such a way that the state's set up, let us know that. We will advocate for you, help you advocate for yourself as well, to try to get those laws changed. And so with that, let's go right into the presentation on what makes a county and why. So we're going to talk a little bit about the history first, and it goes way back for counties in New York, back to 1683, and the Doggin laws, as they're known. So this was well before even the United States was formed. We have New York counties, and this is assembled by the King's Charter from England, and at that time, there were only a few counties, but already you're seeing a structure, an understanding that what we need some kind of border and government control. And so you've got the recognition that to maintain order, to help with public policy, they set up these few counties in New York. And I think on a next slide, but we'll talk about in a second, has a sheriff that it needs to keep law and order. They also had these 12 counties allowed a legislative body already here. You're seeing the structure starting to form to be able to pass laws and to be able to have these laws not necessarily be uniform everywhere. You're going to have local needs. And those local needs are going to be met differently by each different area that are starting to be known as your counties. On that previous slide too, if you want to just go back, Jeanette, it's kind of interesting. When you come, please do come to our NISAC offices. We have this on our wall. It's a photocopy. It's of a part of the Doggin laws that going way back. This was your county clerk from Albany had original copies of some of these that were stored and kept, and they gave us a photocopy of it. Really neat. Please use your county clerk and your local historian to look at some of the. You'll be amazed at what filings and artifacts you have to get a unique feel for what's in each one of your counties and the history of it's interesting to do. But we'll be happy to show you this when and if you come visit us. Next slide. And then the next one too, please. So again, you'll see some familiar names here. We got 12 counties. A lot of them have remained the same. The borders have changed over the years, but this is again, you'll see the beginning of the structure of how that's done. And now the sheriff was appointed later on. It's going to be elected by the colonial governor. But this is also, you're seeing how this is going to start to form, in that the sheriff is one of 4 unique positions that are going to be later on become what's known as constitutional officers in your county. That these are they're really your first kind of positions that were must-haves in a county, and those 4 are going to have some constitutional protections later on. But you can already see the governor appoints the sheriff in each of these counties, and the need for that early on. Next slide. Okay, now we're going to fast forward to 1777. We have the state constitution, and this is really now the good news as far as the powers that we get as a county, and this is where a lot of our counties are now formed. The borders are delegated. We now are recognized as a municipal government, and we have now so in the powers that go back all the way to 1777. A lot of these from there they remain unchanged quite a bit. So this is the state constitution, not to be confused obviously with the federal constitution that gives us these powers. Federal constitution created the states and gave them their powers and gave them a lot of sovereign powers. The state of New York then was ratified by the people, and they created our local governments and giving us the powers and the protections that we'll later have when and if these powers are trying to be taken away. Once the state established the fact that we as a county exist and are a government entity in the state constitution, it became much harder to ever try to take that power away from us. And the reason why is, once we're not a sovereign state in the technical sense. We are a creation of the state, and then we're later defined by state law. But once you're in the Constitution, and some of these powers that we'll talk about in a minute that are granted to you, it takes the will of it takes 2 consecutive sessions of the state legislature to pass to change the Constitution, and then also it takes a referendum of the people to make that change too. So it's a once you're in, it's a hard burden to get that state constitution changed. So we do the basic structures and powers that were given by the state constitution. We get to keep those. Now, we'll talk about later, they get further defined and narrowed a bit by state law, but we do keep our general powers. Next slide. So where in the Constitution do you find this? It's called the Bill of Rights for Local Governments. It's under Article 9 of the New York State Constitution. And so now we're seeing how the structure is really formed. Here we talk about, if you look at the first bullet point, that every local government, so this is county, so when we're talking about local governments, what are we talking about? County, city, town, village. But we'll stick with counties for now. Every local government shall have an elected legislative body. So you'll all have that, and we'll have that in different forms. And these local bodies have different, have all basically, very similar powers. Now you can, with the legislative body, you can form different ways to provide the services for your people. You can also pass local laws, and I'll talk about that at the end of this slide because I think that's to me, and I'm a bit biased as someone that worked in the county attorney's office, but I think your local law power is about as great of a power as you have. This is and it's important to know what that is and the extent of that. So no local government can be annexed without the approval of the voters through referendum. So what does that mean? Again, once you're created, it's hard to get rid of you, and that's true with all local governments. It's the people that live within those government bodies that will need to say, you know what, we'll get even if it's a village, we'll just merge with the town. That can't be done unilaterally. It's going to have to be done through a referendum, and the people are going to need to agree. Then the power to apportion costs of government service with authorization of the legislature. That's a fancy way of saying you can tax. So this is another thing that's unique about you. You can tax. Now, you can tax within the structure that the state gives you. So the two main revenue sources, and there's others, I mean, we get some fees here and there, but the two main revenue sources are your local property taxes and your state sales tax. Both of these, so you look at with authorization of the legislature, we mean the state legislature there, right? So you can have, well, actually we mean both there, but I'll explain. You can get those revenue sources because the state allows us to get those, and they'll define how far you can go up. Some counties through home rule have 3% sales tax on anything purchased within the county. Some have over 4%, and the state can define that. The apportion cost of government service with authorization of the legislature does also mean we're talking about what powers you have as a legislator. If you're a county legislator on the line here, where's your real power come in day to day, and why do you have these hearings? One of your main purposes, because you're going to be delegating to your different departments, is deciding how much you're going to allocate your funding. Once you've set your budget, how much is going to go to each department per year? How flexible can we be? How much do we need to give to everything from the sheriff's office to the Department of Social Services? Do we need more employees? Do we need less employees? These are going to be a big part of what a county legislature does, figuring out, and that's going to change county by county. Some counties are going to have many more veterans, just proportionally. You're going to need to put more money into your veteran services. Some counties might have less, but might have more Meals on Wheels needs. And this is really where you need. This is the fundamental reason why local government's so important. You're the closest to the people. You understand your local needs, and therefore you will be in the best position to understand what you need to allocate and where. And then the request, the legislature authorized the establishment of different forms of county government. We'll get into the different forms later, but so this is you've got a lot of flexibility on what your county structure is going to look like, which can really help you meet the different needs of your people. And again, we'll talk about the different forms and why some counties choose to have different structures than others in a minute. And before we go to the next slide, I do just want to touch on and it's not a bullet point, but here anyway, it might be on a future slide, and we'll just fast forward. But your local law power, it is, I mean, this is really what a county legislature can do as well. I mean, well, know this, with counties, you can pass two things as a legislature. You can pass, but let's stick right now with local laws. But you can also pass resolutions. But local laws are your powers that within your borders, you can, if the state doesn't speak on an issue, and there's going to be a caveat to what I'm about to say, but if the state doesn't speak on an issue, you can pass a local law that restricts or guides how something's going to operate within your state. You have the duty and the power to help and support the health, the public protection of your local residents, and you can do this through local law. And it's really amazing what you can pass. Now there's restrictions, and there's restrictions with a few things. Something called preemption. Preemption is, in simple terms, the state's already passed a law on this. The state says on highways, you can't go over 55 miles per hour. You can't then say, well, if it goes through the county, we can go 100 on this state road. You can't do that. It's already been talked about. It's already been preempted. You also can get preempted on certain issues with other local governments in your own county. So the borders of a town, they also have these kind of powers, right? So if you pass a county law on, well, really many issues, and the town disagrees, they can within reason pass their own, and then it's really whatever border you're in. The town, it can get confusing, and I think towns and counties work together quite a bit, but there is that ability. So then let's talk too quickly about the local laws on what can you do so when I said that you can pass anything that the state hasn't spoken on, there's a lot of flexibility on emerging technologies, and you see this because this is an area, there's so many state laws, but the state hasn't sometimes or just hasn't understood these emerging technologies, the impact locally. You see it first, and we can and do pass local laws that end up usually, especially when they're good ideas, to become state policy, but it usually happens on our end first. So I remember, I think it was around 2008, 2009, I was in county government, and a lot of New York did not yet pass a no texting while driving law, and there were accidents happening. Our sheriffs were reporting this, that we had reason to believe it was people just not understanding doing that. We passed local laws on that to punish those that were caught driving while texting. A few years later, the state picked that up themselves and became a statewide law, and then we were preempted after that, right? Because now the state's speaking to this, but we were the first to do that. You're looking around the state right now, there's counties that are passing local laws on companies like that third-party vendors that are delivering food are charging a lot of money from restaurants to make those deliveries during the pandemic. We're having counties, the state hasn't spoken on this yet, we're having counties pass local laws to cap that, and it just shows the variety and strength of and the creativity you can have as a local government official to pass local laws to try to correct what you see as a wrong in your particular area of the state. Next slide. So the first bullet point says, not all offices in the Constitution are elected or appointed officials of the local government. So you're going to have there's not everyone's going to be an elected official, right? You're going to have a lot of public officers, many that are appointed. Most of this, though, is you're starting from the top down. You've got your elected officials on top that run that not just control and allocate the funding to the county. They are going to be, and we'll get to the organizational structures later, they're going to be they're the managers of the county, and they might delegate that power later, but they're going to, there's a lot of county officials that you need. You've got thousands, most counties have well over 1,000 employees and county officials working for them, and we'll need to hire and bring people in. It's your county legislature is on top of that, and is the ones that are making those appointments. Again, they oftentimes delegate that power with a different process, and we also have civil service laws we'll talk about in a minute, but that's the basic structure. Eminent domain power. As you probably know, that what that means, there's, again, within reason, you can do a taking of property if need be. Local governments can act jointly as authorized by the legislature. So again, you're not always on an island, right? You can work together, usually through an MOU. You can do an agreement. There's shared services initiatives that the state will actually, if you're doing a unique new working together jointly with a town or another county on anything from snow plowing to IT services, and you're getting a savings, the state is encouraging that. You can get savings from that. You can, but yeah, there's even a proposal this year, and we'll see where it goes, but we're tracking this and looking into it now, where there's going to be more flexibility on, potentially with the governor's budget, joint jails. So there might be, I mean, already I believe you can use through agreements, if you have some need for a county that's bordering you, you can send some inmates, if need be, to that county. But this might actually even be even potentially more of a regional jail approach that you might be able to act jointly. But again, this all comes from authorization from the state, which we can help you with to understand, is this something we can do together or something we can't. When that time comes, please contact NISAC and we can walk you through that process. State legislature must adopt a statute of local governments. So now we're getting into, so let's get, I think the next slide, we're going to be getting out of the Constitution, and you can go, Jeanette, that's perfect. That's the next slide. And into what they're saying there, the state legislature can now further define, even though we've got those constitutional protections, the state legislature can now further define what exactly we can and can't do or have to do. And one of the things the state legislature is empowered to is to mandate programs and the costs on these units of local government to counties. So what are we talking about? I guess unfunded mandates, right, is really what we worry about at NISAC, but this could really mean any mandates. It's mandates isn't necessarily a bad term. Unfunded is. I mean, in a lot of ways, mandates are what make counties. I mean, the state tells us a lot of things from our federal requirements of the state, whether that be Medicaid to indigent legal services. But the way New York State's structured, and we've got so many people and it's such a complex state, that we as a state have chosen a lot of the on the ground services are going to be done on a county level. So there's state requirements. Again, I think the easiest ones to think about are Medicaid services, or even local health department services, to indigent defense. Yet the state tells us, their county, their state functions, district attorney also, they want these to be county run positions. So they make us provide the service. We have the overhead of the service. They do reimburse us for some. Those are just mandates that are funded. A lot of times they're what are unfunded mandates. So they want us to do the programs and require the costs that go with them. So what, there's, and unfunded mandates, what are they? I mean, there's everything from our Medicaid services, I mean, that's a large part of our spend, to even things like DA salary. DA salary is something the state requires us. It's a unique one. It's the state requires under state law how much a district attorney gets paid, yet they don't fully reimburse us for that. There's not much flexibility we have there. Next slide. So as county employees, we are all full-time employees, whether you're elected or otherwise. You are part of the public employee pension system. There are 4 different type of pension systems set up in New York. Most county employees are going to be in that second bullet point. We're in the New York State and local retirement system. You know, some counties do have police and fire. Not all counties have that, so you might be in that 3rd tier. And the city of New York is a county also, or they're a county member of NISAC. They have their own separate pension system. Pension systems also protected under the Constitution. Next slide, Jeanette. And so this is the verbiage that protects pension rights for employees that once they're in. But know that so I say once you're in, it is and it says the benefits of which shall not be diminished or impaired. That's again my belief, but I think it's a common belief that is once you're in, these won't be diminished or impaired. It doesn't mean for future employees. So that's why we have, you know, tier 1 through I think tier 6 these days of different types of pension benefits for, you know, those are passed for future employees that come in. But it would, you know, once you're in, you're locked into a tier, and that shouldn't, you know, shall not be diminished or impaired from there. There is a caveat to that. There was a state law passed a few years ago. If one is convicted of certain types of fraud, that their pension can be taken away from them. Next slide. Here, these are so now once we're set up with our constitutional protections, then the state can have passed different laws and that impact us. And there are different categories of state laws, and they're codified into approximately 100 different categories. So the state passes, you know, thousands of laws every year, and they're called chapter laws of the certain year, and then they get organized into these different sections of law that could impact a county, but not all 100. Well, 100 different categories of New York State law impact counties, but we want to mention a few. So when and if you just know where to look for some of these things, where they might be, because it can get, with that many categories, it can get hard to figure out, well, I think this law is controlling, but where do I find it? So there's civil service law. That's one codified category of state law. And that's really going to talk about the rules and structure of local civil service administration, and the Public Employees Fair Employment Act, the Taylor Law. So union issues of and how does that process work, and arbitrations, and how is PERB set up. A lot of this is all under civil service law. So you know how county employees can, whether, you know, everything from discipline to hired, you're going to be able to find under civil service law. Election law. We run most counties run most of the elections. I mean, this is our job. The most part, I think villages do some as well. But how we conduct elections is all codified under a section of New York State law called election law. Eminent domain procedural law. We've talked about eminent domain. Highway law. So the construction and maintenance of county highways. That's a huge role that counties play. And how you do that, whether you're going to do a curb cut, adding roads, what kind of, you know, what you can do as far as surveys and safety might all be under highway law. Next slide. Here's more sections of consolidated laws. Public officers law. This is a huge one. Lot to go over here. And just really can your day-to-day as especially in the county legislature can get impacted by understanding public officers law. It's this is where how and when and where do you file your oaths. So every county official is going to have to take an oath of office. How one can do anything from resign to filling a vacancy. Filling a vacancy sounds like it's an easy. Should be something easy to understand. Somebody leaves, somebody comes in, but it's you know, it's a little bit more complex than that. You'll find this under public officers law. So, and what's an example of how is that complex? As I mentioned before, there's 4 constitutional officers for counties, elected county officials. You've got your sheriff, you got your county clerk, you've got your treasurer, and your district attorney. Those are your 4 what we'll call constitutional officers, because they're actually named in the Constitution, therefore have a little bit more protection. How do you fill those vacancies? Typically there, and again, there's always caveats to caveats, those are governor appointments if there's a vacancy in one of those. For all other county officials, the vacancy gets filled by the county itself. And what that typically means is the legislature, right, or gets to pick if there's a vacancy in one of those offices. How to remove one from office, again, seems like it should be a relatively simple topic. It's not. It gets complex, especially when you're talking about removal of office of an elected official. How does one remove an elected official? Well, they lose an election. Typically, that's the main way. But let's say a county or whoever says, you know, the act that one is doing is grounds to remove them from office. How is that done? Well, you can find that structure under public officers law. I'll say, just from what I've seen over the years, I think it's a difficult process, and again, typically that's going to require at least a conviction of a felony or higher. It's rare to be able to remove an elected official other than from an election itself. FOIL and open meetings laws. Again, important to understand. This is how the public gets access to your meetings is open meetings law, and understanding that and their rights and ability to get and see and be a part of the process, the hearing processes. FOIL is what we call in New York the requests for finished documents or that counties have. So if they're public records, they should be made public. Not all of them are necessarily easy to find. They can do any individual can do a FOIL request. The county has a reasonable time to comply with that. If it's a finished document that should be turned over. Document can be, even that can get a little complex. Emails are considered documents, by the way. You send that email, that is 99% of the time. There's always exceptions. That's subject to FOIL. So be careful with what you're emailing. You understand that anything you send out as a public official, just be okay with, well, I'm okay with the whole public seeing this, because potentially they can and will. Retirement Social Securities law, local finance law, talking about how we can incur debt, and bonding. Tax law, and tax law is again, we talked about that earlier, our ability to tax, and what the levels that we're allowed to will be found under New York State tax law. Next slide. Go through these quickly. Vehicle and traffic law, that's the more for your DA's office, figuring out what people can and can't do while driving. But then there's also, your county clerks run your DMVs. There's going to be impact under those laws. Volunteer firefighter benefit law, that is more for the counties that have firefighters and volunteer firefighters. So that's a largely the town issue too. And workers' compensation law, that's going to impact all counties, to understand and know that. And then there's also different types for correction officers that you employ than other employees, but work through your county attorney's office on something this complex, but know that those laws all impact you as a county. Next slide. General municipal law. This is kind of the catch-all for counties. So this is, if you can't find it anywhere else, it's probably under general municipal law, as far as not necessarily structure, but just things that we can and can't do. This is one of the places under general municipal law. Two places you might want to look at. I think the last two ones are the most important. The conflicts of interest. So you'll talk about whether or not that you've got, whether it be ethical issues or you've got if you can serve on two different jobs, the general municipal law will have some guidance there. And then IDAs, so setting up an IDA in your county, town, how to do that, and the process on how to do that, and then the structures that they need to live under or under general municipal law. Next slide. So this is going to get into now. We talked about what you can and can't do operationally. These two codified areas of state law, county law and municipal home rule, are going to organize how we are going to structure how we can have our county organization. So, I mean, the first confusing thing, especially if you're newly elected, I know when I first worked in a county attorney's office, my mentor, Howard Carpenter, asked me to look up a local law, and I was looking under county law for it, and he just let me keep grinding through that until I finally realized, oh, county law is actually a state law. So it was a good learning moment for me. But I'll save you the time right now. County law is a state law that controls how counties are structured. It's not a local county law. And there's some run over in municipal home rule law as well. But we'll go to so then I'll get into how a county is shaped and why. So next slide. So the county law, it doesn't make a provision for an elected executive. Now but you will see later on that many counties have this. That's going to be done typically under our charter powers. We'll talk about that later. This is the state saying that, talking about all the powers of your board of supervisors. So your board of supervisors is a county legislature. When back in the day when counties were all started, we also we had a town form of government as well. And the board of supervisors typically meant that and we still have many counties that are still structured like this. When one is elected to their town board, and that's why it's called the board of supervisors, they also took on the role of being on the county board, or AKA the county legislature, and having the powers to do that. It is wearing two hats, but it's you flip a switch from one meeting to the other. As now I'm the county representative at those meetings and the town supervisor at the other, but they get elected through their town, and then they're automatically representing the county. And this is done through county law. So all powers and exercised through local law and resolution. I went through a long diatribe on local laws. What's a resolution? So I also said that you could pass a resolution. What that is, it's got the power of local law. It's passed in a little different process, typically a little easier structure to pass a resolution than a local law. That said, they're typically meant to be shorter in time. So it's a local law lasts forever until it's preempted, or that they're either by as we talked about before, how it can be preempted, or by another local law passed by your county, and then it's a last in time rules. A resolution really is supposed to be shorter in nature. It can be one of two things. It can just be a declaration, resolution. The Niskayuna Little League is the team is the best in the state. We're proud of them. To something much more, that can well beyond a statement. It can be a resolution that something has the power of local law, and that's something like a budget can be passed by resolution. Typically your county budgets can be passed by resolution, and so what? But that's also short in nature, right? So that's why it's a resolution, not a local law. That's a 1-year budget, and it ends at that time. The county law also delegates that we have to elect a chair, a board chair, that will run the meetings and be the head of the legislature. Next slide. So home rule law. does a lot in home rule law. But what we really mean by home rule is how to keep and structure some of your local powers. This does talk about how the form by which we need to adopt local laws. So the resolutions are a little bit more relaxed on how you pass those. Still, you still need majority vote on those. Local laws, there's a real strict structure, and that's under Muni Home Rule. The notice you need to put out, who needs to the public, how long that notice goes out, the actual words that can be contained. One thing with local laws that is different than state law is state law can really, and certainly federal law, you can have many different subjects in one law that you're passing. You can call it a Farm Aid Act in the state or federal government, and it can encompass a ton of different things that might not even be related to farming, as far as I can see. Counties aren't, and local governments we're supposed to stick to one issue at a time when we're adopting our local laws. And this is all things you can find in the home rule laws. And then adopt or amend a county charter. This is also important with your organizational structures. What a county charter is something that's passed by referendum of the people within the county. And this can completely change your organizational structure. This is really how you get county executive form of government. Typically is done through a county charter. And if one is going to either create or get rid of elected officials, it's typically done through a county charter process, because those kind of actions need to happen through a referendum anyway, and that's something that you can do through a county charter. But what a county charter really is it's almost like your own county's constitution. It's the structure by which and the way that the laws are going to be run within your county. Not all counties have that. You don't need to even change the organizational structure. It's just a typical way that many counties do. You can go to the next slide. So adopting a charter, how do we do it? It's first, it's the resolution of the legislative body. That's how it's typically started. At least the legislative body says, we're a board of supervisor structure right now. We are both town officials, and we also represent a county. We are interested in only having a town function when I'm elected to the town, and we want to create a separate county legislature. How is that done? First, that legislative body itself needs to vote for that, typically. But if they're reluctant to do so, there's a separate way to start that process, and that's if they get a certain number of petitions by the voters, and in a certain time, they can start the process. Then the charter, how is the county going to look? It can be drafted by the legislative body or by a committee that the legislative body designates. The charter commission or the committee will draft what the charter is going to look like, the structure, and we're going to create a county executive. What kind of powers is that county executive going to have? Are they going to have a full veto power on everything, and if so, is that going to take a supermajority to override? How you're going to put all that stuff in the charter if you're going to create something like that, and then that's going to have to be subject to referendum. The people need to all agree to that and vote for that in your county, and then any time after that, if you want to change it, same process. So this is why I think it's more like think of that more like a constitution for your county. Once you create a county charter, not that easy to amend. You got to bring that to the people. Next. So what type of different county organizations do we have across the state? In New York counties, we have 23 counties now have a county charter with an elected county executive. Montgomery was our last. think 2000, actually can't covered with that slide, but I think it's 2011. Ulster was in 2009. And so why would one want to create a county executive type county? You know, and then the balance of why I've seen why not. You know, some of the smaller counties, especially, you're creating a new office, right? And it's more of the way the structure of the state is formed, where it's your county executive is almost like the governor of New York. You've got a high at that level that will have veto power over local laws typically. But what and there's a cost to that, a literal cost. Like, you know, it's you're going to have to hire staff and get the right individuals to maintain that office. And so for smaller counties, it could be looked at. Wow, this is a heavy cost of something that we think we can handle as a legislature ourselves. Some bigger counties, that's you know, on a scale, that's a fraction of a cost, and they see it as a good way to govern, in that you can have one face of the county for, you know, state policy issues that are impacting county. You have a go-to person of, you know, especially we've seen in the pandemic. You know, you've got your it's to be able to find the one person to ask, you know, the media who to go to, or to the state. It can be desirable in that way. Next bullet point. So 16 counties still have the Board of Supervisors structure. So this is, again, that they got elected from their town, and then they serve also as the county. 40 counties have a county legislature, so separately elected officials, nothing to do with the town. No town representation. They're now two different bodies. One county has a Board of Representatives. We'll talk about this in a second, but the county legislature and Board of Representatives are the same. It's same thing, different name, pretty much. So then why? We can go to the next slide. But why would it be desirable for what's better? County legislator, board rep. It all depends on your county and your county needs. Next slide. And you know, the two hats can be a great thing, especially, you know, for smaller towns. You've got town officials that then work in the county, and they understand both forms of government. It can create a case where they can understand both needs and work together. You know, it might be easier to share anything from snow plows to any kind of services. You're already wearing both those hats, so you can work together. You're in this type of government, you're going to have a weighted vote almost always, because we do have a one person, one vote designation. So if you're in a town of 10,000 and you get voted in, and you've got your neighbors a town of 20,000, they're going to have twice the vote on the county level, of more proportioned weight. Next slide. But a legislature, so why would we not? You know, that sounded good. Why would we go to a legislative representative? You know, you can cut up your districts more here. So you might have now a legislator. You can fulfill that one person, one vote requirement by representing. Everyone gets one vote, and everybody now each represents just 10,000 people, as opposed to a place where one town might be really big, and so you might be able to have an easier access to your local official. You know, that, and there's times where maybe a county and town don't want to work together. There might be an advantage where they're saying, you know what, we should be separate here, and I would like to represent my county, not necessarily my town, and this is in those cases, this is could be seen as a cleaner government to do that. Next slide. But they ultimately they're the same in spirit, right? You're a legislative body. You're creating local laws. You're setting budgets. You're at the top of the hire fire. You're of the county itself, the employees. You're adopting your administrative code. You're doing the same functions. You're just a different structure to do so. Next slide. Talked about this a little bit. So what the county executives, you know, it's one face that's managing all the internal operations of the departments. They're also acting as your chief budget officer, kind of like the governor sets the state budget and then trickles down from there. They can veto typically actions of the legislative body. They appoint all department heads. Usually, again, larger counties with county executives in population. Next. Counties with appointed, so this is your, so when I said that the county legislators are the top of they're the managers, right? And they have to make the hiring, firing decisions. That is a lot for especially larger counties that have thousands of employees, and these county legislators are only meeting sometimes only twice a month because these are part-time employees, and so what many counties, 22, have created what is called county administrators, 11 have created county managers. See them as the same thing. It's the county legislature delegating their powers of administration and hire, fire, discipline, how a county is going to operate to a county manager's office. This is they almost have very similar powers without the veto power of a county executive. They're their face and they oversee the county operations, but they ultimately, this power has just been delegated. They have to go back to the legislature to report back and make sure that they're doing what they want them to do. Next. And then appointed administrative officers. Again, these are all real employees. That it is pointed out, the legislative body is appointing them. They serve at their pleasure. You know, whether it be the county attorney, the county manager, and they oversee the operation, like we talked about earlier, of the county government. Next slide. Legislative administration. So you don't have to have a county manager do the day-to-day operations. Again, that's only, it's that you have to create that office, and there is a cost to that. And like I said, you know, if you have thousands of employees, you might want to set up a county manager structure, but not all counties have that. There's some counties that have dozens or only hundreds of employees, just based on their smaller size. In these cases, you have 9 counties where they are going to provide the administration. They're going to hire the department heads. They don't have a county manager or a county executive to do those functions. Next slide. But you all have the power to change your structure. So just because it worked now, based on different needs as your population goes up, down, different services are needed, you might want to change your county government and how it's structured. And what was a good idea 20 years ago, you might want to change that now. You can do that. You've got the power to adopt or repeal county charters if you already have one. You have the power to create one. You have the power. It's one of your great powers to have, is that you can change how your county is structured and operates. And yeah, we'll do questions. And that last bullet point, though, I do want to point out again, you cannot get rid of, when you're doing the county structure, you can't get rid of an elected official or even diminish their powers without going to the referendum. You can't create or get rid of an elected official without the will of the local people. And I think that ends it. I didn't think I was going to go the full hour, but I got a little wordy in there at times. Are there any questions? I hope, know this, call me anytime if you have any questions about this or anything else. I've got, my cell phone is 518-698-6682. If you're ever looking to do anything like this, changing county structure, or to just any kind of legal questions or guidance, give me a call. I'll be happy to help out.
Thank you, Pat. It's a really informative program. We are right at the hour of 11 o'clock, and we don't have any questions to pass on right now. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. I hope that you find the time to join a number of our other programs. We have a very big lineup for the rest of January and all of February, and as well as March. So keep an eye out for our email blasts about our upcoming free webinars. I also want to thank once again Romer Wallens, Gold and Minot for sponsoring today. Again, if you'd like to be in touch with them, just contact John Minot at 518-464-8911. Thank you for spending time with us today, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.